Welcome, everybody. I'm Chris Harbard.
And I'm Mary Sia.
And this is another of our wonderful Southwest Wings webinars featuring some of the incredible experts around us in their various fields. And today we're absolutely thrilled to have Diana Hadley with us. She's the founder, member, and president of the Northern Jaguar Project. This is a project which is actually based down in Sonora, Mexico, preserved down there, a safe haven for jaguars. And it's only about 120 miles south of the border with the US. It's very, very close. And we're looking forward to hearing more about jaguars and maybe their occurrence across the border here. So welcome, Diana, and over to you.
Welcome, Diana.
Great. Good morning, everybody. I can't see your faces, but I'm just curious to know how many people. I've given talks at Southwest Wings before, and I'm just curious to know how many people have heard my talks before. So I don't want to be too repetitious. Can you see hands going up, Maury or Chris?
Just a couple.
Just a couple? Okay.
No, we see hands going up, definitely. Yeah. Yes.
So people have heard what I've talked about. Okay, well, I will.
Well, just a few out. We have about 25 on coming in as we go. So a handful of people have heard you before.
Yeah, most.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me back. So anyway, the Borderland Jaguar Conservation is moving forward, and I had a few questions that I'm going to try to answer as we go, but mainly what I want to tell you about is the Jaguar Reserve in the Municipio, which is like the county of Sahuaripa. It's the equivalent of a county, only their counties in Sonora are much smaller than our counties in Arizona, and there are many more of them than we have. In any case, the Northern Jaguar Reserve is 5,700 acres, 57,000 acres approximately. And if that is an approximate estimate, and I will show you why it's an approximate estimate in just a moment. And I'm going to talk about the reserve itself, and then I'm going to talk about what we're doing to protect jaguars. And obviously we have been able to raise enough funding to purchase the 55 to 57,000 acre reserve. And that is the core area that's reserved and really heavily protected with 2 jaguar guardians there at all times to make sure that there aren't any violations or that there aren't any problems going on at the reserve, no trespass, no attempted poaching or anything like that. And so far, I'm knocking on my wooden desk here. We have not had any problems like that. So that's very good news. But the program that we have that is really new and hasn't really been done many other places, or really has followed or imitated our program, is called Viviendo con Felines, which means living with felines. And that is a program that we engage with about 18 to 20 other ranches that surround the reserve. And they're all in critical migratory corridors or adjacent to the reserve. And we have over 100,000, more than 100,000 acres of ranch properties that are working ranches with cattle on them that are engaged in that program. And to date, and I'm not bragging about this because I always think that that brings down retribution, but to date, we have not had any problems with those ranchers, any significant problems, and we haven't had any jaguar depredations on their livestock, although we have had quite a few mountain lion depredations. And there was one depredation by a jaguar, they think, that was not exactly on one of the Viviendo con Felinos ranches, but we helped them file a report to the Mexican government to help with compensation for that depredation. We don't do any compensation, but I'll explain that program in greater detail. Okay, here is a map of the reserve, and let me know if you can see my cursor. Tucson is right about here. This would be Douglas right in this, Douglas would be right about here. And if you were to drive straight south of Douglas, you would get to the Jaguar Reserve, only you couldn't reach it without going to Sahuaripa first and then driving back towards the north. So I just want to emphasize that all of our work is done in Mexico. We don't really work in the United States, except for some public information like the program that I'm giving right now. This is the document that is the title document to one of the ranches. And this dates from the time of New Spain, and some of the titles date from the time of the very early independence of Mexico after 1821. And many of these properties have not been resurveyed for some of them haven't been resurveyed for 100 years. And so you read the survey and it says, from this oak tree to the edge of this creek and to the big stone outcropping, and you know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to determine exactly whose ranch borders which other ranch and where the property lines end. In any case, here is a map of the Northern Jaguar Reserve, and you can see it's over here in the state of Sonora, very close to the Chihuahua border. This is the reserve, and it is bordered by 3 rivers. The river that goes to the north up here is the Bavispe, and this river coming from over here is the Aros River. And that river begins in the mountains of Chihuahua, and it makes a dip to the south, and then it heads back north, and it comes into the Jaguar Reserve by crossing the border from Chihuahua into Sonora. So we have a river on the east side of the reserve, we have a river to the north of the reserve, and those 2 rivers come together, and I can't see them on my screen because the mute button is right on top of it, but the confluence of the Aros and the Bavispe join right here, and they create the Yaki River, which is the largest river in northern Mexico, and which is a really important river to the state of Sonora. So here's a better map showing how here's the Aros coming down, here's the Jaguar Reserve, and these are some of the ranches that are involved in the Viviendo Concolinos project. As you can see, the Yaki flows down here. The town of Sahuaripa is farther to the south. Sahuaripa is our closest town, and it is, I don't have photographs of it in this presentation, but it's a charming little 3,000 to 5,000 person town, population town, and it has these beautiful old colonial houses that are in terrible states of decay. They're beautiful adobe houses, and some of them date from the early Mexican Republic, and others may date from the actual New Spain, pre-1821. So it's been there for a long time. It was the main capital of the Opata Indians, who were kind of absorbed by the Mexican and the Spanish and later the Mexican population of Mexico. And I don't think there are any language speakers left. In any case, you can see an ecological map here of the entire area of Sonora. The ecosystems that we have are thorn scrub and deciduous tropical forest. Well, those are the major ecosystems that we have. And because the reserve and that entire part of Sonora is very mountainous, the elevations go from about 1,500 feet to a little bit more than 4,000 feet, and it is just full of canyons. It's the kind of country that you would say if you closed an accordion and then opened it halfway, that is what you've got. You've got this entirely accordioned landscape that is full of canyons and full of bluffs. In any case, you can see the difference between the tropical deciduous forest and the 2 types of thorn scrub. This is a map of what the landscape looks like. Here is the road that comes from the town of Sahuaripa, which is over these mountains and down in this valley that you see here. Okay, so this is looking kind of southeast. And here comes the road, and it is a very, very dramatic, very beautiful landscape. Here is another picture of the only road that gets to the reserve. Like I say, it's about 30 miles north of Sahuaripa, and if you were going to drive from Douglas to Sahuaripa, then you would have to go north again to go to the reserve, and this is the road that gets you there. The road is really bad. It's a really dangerous road, and this is what happened maybe back in 2005 or 6 or 7. We had a huge monsoon period, and the rains washed the road completely out, and this is what was obstructing. Here goes the road farther up the hill to reach the reserve. We had to access the reserve on mules for about 6 months before we could get bulldozers in to fix it. The other way that you can reach the reserve, and certain parts of it are really inaccessible by road, is through boats on the Otters. And having that surround by rivers and only water access has really been beneficial to the conservation of all of the species that are on the reserve, especially the feline predators. Okay, here we have some photographs of the different types of small ecosystems that we have, little pocket ecosystems. Here we have beyotas. These are oak trees that are very common in this part of Mexico, and you can see that there are deciduous grasses here, deciduous trees, and this is the higher elevation landscape that is most common. This is what you see throughout the reserve. So you see these big buttes sticking up, palm trees, oak trees in the same canyon. This is a kapok tree, which is very vicious. If you run into these thorns are really rough. And here we have some of the thorn scrub. I always say that you can, and I am not a biologist, I'm a historian, and so my biology is not up to snuff, so don't quote me on any of this. But this is you see one of the pitaya cactuses, and the way to distinguish between thorn scrub and tropical deciduous forest is if it's forest, the trees are taller than the cacti. If it's thorn scrub, the cacti are taller than the trees. And the other thing that we have on the reserve very, very frequently are these wonderful ponds with palm trees surrounding them. And we also have these hoodoos that stick up in different locations. I think this is the Otters River. This is a view of the Otters. And most of these rivers have small amounts of water in them during the dry season, and then during the monsoon, we have huge flooding events. More photographs of the hoodoos. Another portion of river, and wonderful spring flowers and vegetation. Here is one of our many water sources, and this is natural ponding in one of the tributary creeks. This is my favorite place. We can swim across. This is close to the headquarters of the reserve, and we can swim across this pond and then climb. I've never done it, but other people have. And then you can climb these rocks, and behind it there is a banana tree that one of the cowboys who worked for the ranch owner who owned this property before the reserve purchased it, planted a banana tree behind here. So you can take your swim and go get a banana for lunch. It's very fun place to go. The reserve has these wonderful mesquite bosques, and you can see here a stone wall, because before the advent of barbed wire, the only way to separate properties and to surround the cattle so that they couldn't get mixed up with other people's cattle was to build stone walls or ratake fencing out of mesquite posts. And so some of these stone walls have been there for maybe 100 years. Here we have dry season thorn scrub, and you'll note these rocks. This is the same area, and these are part of that rock outcropping, and you can see what a huge difference there is between dry season thorn scrub and wet season thorn scrub. This is a photograph of the tropical deciduous forest, the oak woodland, and then I mean, this is the very highest elevation. This is tropical deciduous forest in this area, and up at the top of this photograph, you have a little bit of all three of the major types of vegetation types. So here's the tropical deciduous forest. Here's the thorn scrub, the tropical deciduous forest, and then up the hill is the oak woodland. More photographs of the wonderful trees. We've got one Palo Chino tree, which is a really spectacular oak. And then we have these geological formations, which are very strange, full of caves. This is the interior of one of the caves. And this is the Rio Aros, and the river has these banks. And on these banks, you can often go down and see all kinds of animal tracks, wonderful animal tracks. Here are some of the major plant species that are on the reserve. And these are the two most important economic plants that we have. The agave, from which bacanora is made, that's become a very, very popular type of liquor. And this is the chiltepine, and this is the mother of the chili, of all of the chili plants. And the chiltepine is the native hot chili that we have throughout this part of the Southwest and northern Mexico. Beautiful sycamore trees on the creek beds. And here's the chiltepine, and this is a roasting pit for agaves, and these are the piñas that are chopped out of the big agave plant. And you can see that would be the core down in here, and they are put in these pits to roast. They put a lot of wood at the bottom, and they get the coals really hot, and then they cover that with some wet grass so that it's kind of smoldering, and then they put the cores out of the center of the agaves in there, cover it with dirt, leave a little bit of escape hole to roast. And these are important economic products for the ranchers who are not, some of them are wealthy absentee landowners, but mostly these are people who stay most of the time in the town of Sahuaripa, but have a modest income from their ranch operations. So this type of economic assistance is very important to them. Okay, I'm going to go through these plants rather quickly. This Nolina beargrass, tree beargrass is really spectacular. And here is an organ pipe that is growing on the side of a mesquite tree, in the bark of the mesquite tree. And there are a lot of ficus, spectacular plants. This is springtime on the reserve, and when we have good winter rains and the flowers start coming out in late February and March, it's truly spectacular. All of the photographs in this presentation were either taken by photographers on the reserve or they were taken by motion triggered cameras. Okay, what I really want to talk about is the research, and all of our research that's done is non-invasive, it's binational, and it's integrated, and it includes the Vivienda con Felinos branches, which I think we have about 20 of them now, and the reserve itself. And we sign contracts with the members of the Vivienda con Felinos project, and the contracts allow our Jaguar guardians and our research personnel to come onto their properties to check the cameras. We try to always do that with one of the cowboys or with the owner of the ranch, but if they're not available, it's okay for us to go ahead and check the cameras without them. And we keep very careful records of all of the results of the camera trapping and the signs that we see of movement, and we do all kinds of monitoring surveys. These are some of our researchers sitting on the outdoor living room of our headquarters building. This is one of the motion triggered cameras, and since we started back in 2003, the cameras, the technology of the cameras has gotten much more sophisticated, and so we're able to take videos. This is our administrator's dog, and I think that this dog Avery has got the longest tongue in the world. But this is one of our technicos, our technical people setting out a camera. Okay, so the research that we do features jaguars, but it includes all the wild species on the reserve. And you can see this is a nighttime camera, very sensitive at night. And we've got a pair of mating jaguars, which is very exciting. This is a typical jaguar. And the thing that's interesting about jaguars is that all of these rosettes that they have are individual. So the pelt of a jaguar is as individual as your fingerprints are. And we can tell from every cat that goes by, every jaguar that goes by, who that is, and we give them names. And it's more difficult to spot individual mountain lions. The cameras also keep track of time and occurrence, and so this is the same mountain lion who visited this spot 2 days apart. We've already talked about that. This is this makes a very good buffer zone because we've got the rivers stopping access, and the town is, like I said, 30 miles. This is the entrance to the reserve. It's 30 miles south, and it takes about 5 hours to get there. 4 hours if the road is in good shape. So it's a bad dirt road, and I think you saw pictures of it. In any case, these are our researchers checking the cameras. We try to put 2 cameras out on either side of an arroyo or a wash or on either side of a road so that we get both sides of the animal passing by. These are some of our Vivienda con Felinos ranchers who've been in the project. These guys have all been in the project for a long time. And as I was saying, the housing on the reserve, the ranch houses on the reserve, were not what might be considered, elegant ranch houses. They have outdoor kitchens, and very often they're made out of pine boards, or like mill ends they look like mill ends from palm trees, palm trees, and they're very simple places to live, not particularly comfortable. In these contracts that are renewed annually, the ranch owners agree not to hunt, poison, bait, trap, disturb in any way any of the wildlife. So that means that they have agreed not to hunt the predators, but they also are not hunting the prey. And many of the ranchers have come back to us after being in the project for a while to say that they are so delighted because the number of deer and the population of deer and the population of javelinas have increased so much that both the jaguars and the mountain lions are consuming and killing and consuming the prey species that they're supposed to be eating instead of their calves. So that was a very good thing to hear. This is one of the jaguar, one of the reserve, one of the houses that was on the reserve. It's no longer there, it's fallen down. But I love this photograph because it shows you how you can make a habitation for people that's not particularly comfortable, but it's all made out of native material. This is a thatched roof made out of deer grass and other types of grasses. These are the millends that I was saying, the palm trees that are split. This is a bed that's made out of local reeds. And this is one of the more elaborate former ranch houses that has become part of our part of the headquarters for the reserve. This is Miguel Gomez, who is our ranch manager. And these are the 4 felines that we really are trying to preserve. Here we have jaguars, mountain lions, ocelots, and bobcats. We have 2 bobcats here. So in the contracts, each person who gets a photograph of a bobcat, each photograph receives 500 pesos. And I put the US dollars equivalent, but that changes all the time because the exchange rate is constantly changing. Here is a puma or mountain lion or cougar, catamount. I mean, the puma has many names. Here we have an ocelot. Ocelots are endangered and they are so beautiful. And here we have a jaguar who gets, for each photograph, they get 5,000 pesos. And when we first started doing this work, we didn't have our contracting system worked out in a very detailed way. And so we had an ocelot that evidently was going back and forth, chasing something in front of the camera. And I think there must have been 10 photographs of that same ocelot. And because the contract didn't say we will only pay for one identifiable photograph of the same animal in a 24-hour period, which all of our contracts now say, we owed the rancher for 10 photographs of this one ocelot who was probably chasing a squirrel or something back and forth. In any case, when we went to make the payment to the ranch owner, his son was there and he said, "Hey, Dad, what are you going to do with all that money?" And the father said, "Well, I think I'm probably going to reinvest it in ranch infrastructure." And the son said, "Oh," he said, "I think you ought to buy some more of those cats because they're worth way more than our calves are." So we learned from that experience. Okay, here are the individual rosettes, and you can see this pattern repeating on the same jaguar identified 10 years apart and 50 miles. The photograph was sent to us from someone who lived very far away. So that was very exciting. It was exciting for many reasons. And having these identifiable markings makes the research so much easier, and it allows us to really learn. So we know that this male jaguar traveled 50 miles and he was alive after 10 years. So that's very exciting to know. In any case, this is more information about the single image. Now, in an image like this mama bobcat with her 2 babies, everybody gets a payment. So that would be three cats. If these kittens, if these cubs, these bobcat cubs started playing and running around in front of the camera, then they still would only within 1 24-hour period, they would only get that one payment. Okay, this is just a review of the biodiversity and the species richness that we have. Of the Mexican species of conservation concern, we have 12. And of the endangered species, we have 4. That includes the jaguar, the ocelot, the bald eagle, and the military macaw. And you're going to get to see photographs of all of those. This is a record of the number of jaguars that we've had. And I think that we now have more like 70 jaguars that have been seen since 2003. And we have way more than 1,000 photographs, because many of those individual jaguars have been photographed multiple times. And sometimes they're photographed 2 or 3 years apart. And so we'll get a jaguar in 2015 and we'll think, oh my gosh, we haven't seen him for 5 years. And then suddenly that jaguar will show up again. So they have a habitat area that could be as large as a home range area if the habitat is adequate, that could be as large as 100 or 200 square miles. And we figure that the reserve could provide habitat, home range with good habitat. That means plenty of prey to eat and good shelter and adequate water at all times of year. There could be 3 female jaguars raising cubs within our immediate area. We also, besides this reward program for photographs, we have additional involvement with the ranchers. We try to give them a set of photographs of all of the wildlife that was taken, that was photographed on their ranches, and that really has caused a huge increase in interest in biodiversity in this area. We also give them the opportunity to name the jaguars that have been found on their ranches. And so we have one jaguar that was named for a rancher's daughter, another one that was named for a rancher's wife, another one that was named for the ranch owner's Saint's Day. And it makes it much harder to trap an animal that's named for your daughter or yourself or your Saint's Day than it does to go after a predator that maybe has killed a calf and eaten it. This is true of mountain lions as well. That isn't named for someone you know or care about. So that's been a successful project for us. We also help with restoration, and I think this photograph is so telling. See all of these little ridge lines that are going across here? All of those little ridge lines are from cattle walking back and forth. And you can see there is not a blade of grass in this whole area. So this is the way a lot of the reserve looked when we first started working there. And as you can see here, there is grass everywhere. We have helped to bring bulldozers in to either clean out or to improve some of the ponds that hold water for cattle. These are referred to as tanques or tanks in Mexico. We also help put in these types of gabions to stop the erosion. You can see how the erosion is cutting down this hill slope. And we have put in cattle exclosures, and we have also built a series of outhouses for some of the ranches that did not have outhouses. And that prevents any kind of what they call aguas negras, black water, from getting into any of the streams on the reserve. After we constructed this, you can see it's a brand new outhouse. this is Miguel Gomez, found a python down in the outhouse hole and brought it out. He said, don't worry, go ahead and use this outhouse. It's going to be perfectly safe. And this isn't a poisonous snake. We also put on celebrations in the town, and somebody wins a prize for the most popular photograph. And then our real triumph was getting this mural painted on the wall of the Cattle Growers Association. And that was a real triumph for us because it meant that people really cared. They wanted to have a new image as Jaguaripa instead of Sahuaripa. They wanted to be the town of the Jaguars, kind of like the head of the conservation efforts in this part of Sonora. I'm not going to have time to go into all of this because I want to show you a bunch of more photographs. But I do want to say that we've had some great comments from the ranch owners who are part of this project. And one of them said, I like knowing where the jaguars are on my ranch because then I try to keep my cattle away from those locations where the jaguars go. Community engagement involves a camp for students, a summer camp, and educational programs in the local schools. And we try to encourage increased tourism. We take a couple of trips to the reserve for paying customers every year. And we encourage them to buy something in the town, which makes, it's very good to have the ecotourism income. But as you can see, getting to this place is really difficult, and the accommodations are comfortable for happy campers. And the accommodations are spectacularly beautiful, and the food that we serve is very good. But it's a long trip, and like I say, it's a rough road. These are some of the other murals that have been done in town, and some of these murals have been painted by the students in the local schools. This is one of our summer camp programs, and these kids all got to plant trees. They also planted trees around the community corrals in downtown Sahuaripa as well. And this is our fiesta that we put on every year. And this fiesta is really fun. It's in the town plaza. A couple hundred people come. We couldn't have it last October, but we tried. But hopefully this year the pandemic will be over. It's been very harsh in Sahuaripa, and we lost one of our environmental education specialists who organized the summer camps. That was very sad. Okay. One of the questions that I got ahead of time was, what are the biggest threats to jaguars or to felid to predator conservation? In Sonora, they're different than they are in the United States, but the social pressure in small isolated communities is really important. And when we first went there, I remember going into the bank one time and somebody said, "Oh, you're from the Jaguar Reserve. Well, why are you doing that? And it's hurting all the ranchers and blah, blah, blah." And she went on and on. This is the teller in the little bank area. And we wouldn't hear that now. The biggest threat that we have is mining. And the biggest threat is mining of lithium, because the largest lithium deposits on the planet have been discovered not far from the town of Sahuaripa. And now we're having a lithium mine that may get started, but very close to the reserve. It's on the way to the reserve. The other threats are pretty obvious. They're ecological, environmental threats, drought and water scarcity. We've had a couple of forest fires, brush fires, really not forest fires, since we've been there. And so we have a program of training local people how to be firefighters, and we have the equipment that's needed, big flappers and special sets of shovels and ways to plan a forest fire. Only forest fire isn't quite a lightning started fire. In any case, those have all been successful. And the thing that is one of the threats that we have for ecosystem preservation is invasive species, and bufflegrass is a huge problem. And here it is. And it really is very fire prone. It was imported from Africa, and it thrives on fire. So fire suppression doesn't help. And using Roundup seems to be the only way to get rid of it. You use Roundup to kill our excessive grazing on the bufflegrass, and of course cows will eat everything else before they start eating the bufflegrass because it's not as tasty as the native grasses. In any case, if you can get it down to where just the little green shoots are coming up in the spring and you don't have all of the kind of dead grass residue on top of it, then you can spray it and then later on chop it out. And that has been successful in the bufflegrass programs that are conducted in the Tucson area. And it's very labor intensive and it takes lots and lots of people. So that is a problem. And predation, we have not had to deal with a whole lot of predation, but these are some of the systems that have worked in other areas. Flattery are these little flags you see up here, and those are successful in keeping wolves out. And lights that come on and noises might scare off jaguars, but honestly, we haven't had that much of a problem. I'm going to skip all of this. This is our latest. This is the latest set of ranches that we have involved in the Viviendo con Felinos project, and these are. This is the reserve. So I love this map. I love all the different colors on it. The other thing that we do for jaguar conservation is we cooperate and collaborate with many other groups, with several other groups that are working in Sonora and in Chihuahua. And there are about 4 or 5 groups that really have done some significant work. And these are the reserve areas. This is the Ajos Vispe Reserve up here, and this is the Jaguar Reserve, and these are all areas where jaguars are protected. This shows the different groups that are working in various in various areas that we do collaborate with. And down here, I can't really see it too well, but Alamos is down on the southern end, and there is a big conservation project that's going on in Alamos. These are the natural corridors, and what we hope to do is protect these areas. So from the Jaguar Reserve down here, this is where they would cross, where jaguars have definitely crossed the border into the United States in the past. And this is the other area where they have crossed into the Tumacacri Highlands in the United States. These are really important corridors to protect. This is a photograph taken by Warner Glenn, a friend of mine since our high school days. This is the Chiricahua Mountains in the distance. We're in the Peloncillo Mountains, right on the Arizona-New Mexico border. And Warner is a ranch owner, and he also is a hunter. He takes customer hunt on customized hunts. When he had never seen a live jaguar, and he was absolutely thrilled. His dog started baying, and he put away his gun. He thought this is something very unusual. So he saw it was a jaguar. He put away his gun and got out his camera and took several the first photographs of a live jaguar taken in the state of Arizona. Okay, the other thing that we do for conservation is try to make presentations. And we did one about 3 years ago in Douglas, Arizona, and Agua Prieta, Sonora, which was very successful. In any case, what we did was we projected images on both sides of the wall, and we had one microphone, and we had seating set up in Mexico and the US. Everybody was talking to each other through the slats in the wall, and we had the images, we had music, we had one mic that we got passed back and forth, and so we had speakers on both sides of the border, and everything was translated, and it was such a wonderful program. In any case, the reason that the border wall is going up, and this is the answer to the other pre-question that I got, I've only got 10 minutes left, was that the border wall is really going to prevent jaguar migration from Mexico, from the breeding populations in Mexico back into the United States. And we have had 7 or 8 jaguars in the past 3 decades. Live jaguars, all males, probably all young dispersing males, and they have been sighted in the Huachuca Mountains, in the Peloncillo Mountains, in the Santa Ritas, and in the Tumacacori Highlands. And now we think there is one jaguar named Sombra who is in the Chiricahuas. Hasn't been photographed for a while, but there are some motion triggered cameras out. And in each instant of these young male dispersing jaguars, the longest one was photographed in the Tumacacori Highlands, and he was around for maybe 8 or 10 years, and unfortunately was illegally trapped and then released with a collar, and did not survive that experience. In any case, the biggest obstacle that we have to the continued presence of jaguars in the US is the border wall. And what I would suggest is, if everybody is interested in this, is a special program on how the border wall came to be, and the 2 different laws that allow it to, that allow the Secretary of Homeland Security to waive laws within 50 miles of the border. And this list are the most common laws that have been waived for border wall construction in the state of Arizona. And you can see that, like the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, American Indian Religious Freedom Act, all of these laws that waived for border construction. This is a photograph of one of the vehicle barriers along the border that was effective in preventing crossings. And this is the type of newer wall that is going up now. This is from about a decade and a half ago. And you can see that some of it's very thick. Here you have the more modern walling, and here you have some of the older wall, but double walls. This is what's happening now. They're putting up 30-foot high walls that are made out of individual bollards, and there is concertina wire, or razor wire as it's called, and it's on the top, and then sometimes it's also at the bottom of the wall as well. And this has been breached by individuals. Some of the recent wall that's gone up has lighting on it, and the lighting is as detrimental as the access roads and the patrol roads that go along the edge of the border. I mean, a jaguar or a mountain lion are definitely not going to go through that at night. The other thing that can be done to facilitate, besides not having solid wall everywhere, the other thing that can be done to facilitate migratory routes of wildlife is to put these passageways underneath highways. And this, as you can see, is being used by this coyote, but could also be used by a jaguar. And what we're hoping is that the new road that's going into Mexico, Route 2, is being expanded to 4 lanes. And we are hoping that they will put up some kind of barriers along the edge of the road up here to create a kind of a funnel so that the wildlife will go in these underpasses. This is one in Canada that's spectacularly beautiful. And you can see that they keep records of all the animals that cross those type of highway overpasses. This is our jaguar presentation from the Mexican side. And what was interesting was that the images could be projected right back to back and they didn't bleed through. And so there was an image on the US side that was getting projected at the same time. There was lots of music. This was a really spectacularly fun event and I would love to do it again. That's just a great image. Okay, I am essentially through with my presentation, and what I'd like to do now is to entertain questions, and I will just go through these photographs, which are all labeled, and you will see some of the wildlife. I'm just going to go through with this, and so Mari and Chris, if you want to start passing questions, I will just show these images and answer questions at the same time.
Thank you, Diana. That was wonderful. We do have a question from Ingrid Schubert from NAP. Would you like to ask your question, Ingrid? Go ahead and turn your mic on.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hello.
Here you are. Go ahead.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I think it's so crucial. My question was, do the ranchers, the various ranchers, do they have cattle dogs to protect their animals from predation? If you said it already, I'm sorry, I missed it.
We haven't had major problems with predation. We've had a few mountain lions, and you can tell the difference between a jaguar kill and a mountain lion kill. And it's really interesting, and I'd love to have a photograph of this, but it's kind of gory. When mountain lions kill a calf or a steer, they grab it by the neck and pull it down, and then they always eat the stomach part first. They open a big hole in the stomach, and they like the digestive materials in the stomach. When a jaguar kills something, they usually crush the head, and so and then between that and the footprints, you can tell the tracks that would be around the kill. You can tell who killed the animal, and in any case, we haven't had a major problem with that. And what the ranchers usually do is they kind of will herd their cattle, and to different locations where they think that there aren't any predators around, and that's the kind of protection that they have. Cowboys on the ranch, and there are 2 big times a year that they gather their cattle. That would be in the spring for branding, and then in the fall for sales. And so they're pretty gentle cattle, and they're easy to move around. So they're relatively easy to move around, although the terrain is the thorn scrub. It's really thorny. It's really hard and it's rough terrain. It's very mountainous and very full of canyons. So it's difficult, but they still manage to keep the cattle gentle and easy to herd. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. That's interesting.
Great.
Thanks, Ingrid. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah. Hey, good to see Alison and Rick. Rick Wright has joined us from New Jersey. That's fabulous. Great that you're here, Rick. I hope you're having a good year so far and look forward to seeing you soon. Don't know when. Okay, are there any more questions, folks?
Well, I have a question for Diana. How would one donate to the Northern Jaguar Project?
Oh, that's a very nice question. Thank you for asking that. I hope you guys are enjoying these photographs of all of our wildlife. They're all named. If you want me to stop, just yell stop and I will slow down with the photographs. The last image in this presentation has the address of the reserve, of the office here in Tucson. And you can look us up on our website. We have a really beautiful website, and it's northernjaguarproject.org.
Okay.
You will see lots more images of different things. I wanted to make a comment that I think that the COVID has been interesting in both the United States and in Mexico, in that I don't know whether other people have observed this, but around Tucson, I see many more quail. In Cochise County, I've seen so many more turkeys. This is what made me think of that. The Gould's turkey is really having a comeback, and I think it's because, I don't know, maybe not so many people are out because of worrying about contagious disease. This is some of the military macaws. This is one of the endangered species on the reserve. And there are some photographs of military macaws. They are spectacularly beautiful. And they nest in these cliffs on the edge of the Aros River.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. You know, Diana, Jackie Smith has a question she'd like to ask you.
Good.
Jackie, are you there?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what can we do to help the project? Do you have any suggestions how we can help? I suppose monetary is the big one, but
well, that, and also, you know, I think that there is an opportunity to have a more reasonable way of protecting the border. This photograph of the
That's awesome.
the skunk, that little, I think that's a striped skunk, and I mean that is no, spotted skunk.
Wow.
Chasing off the fox. Don't you love that? He definitely won that battle.
Good one.
Anyway, and these coatis are wonderful. Look at this baby coati down here.
Oh, adorable.
These are big prey species for the ocelots and the bobcats. And look at these guys up the trees. Look at this one hanging upside down. I just love that photograph. And and this is another. Now these are Neotropical river otters, and I actually think that those are endangered too, but they're not on the list of what's endangered. Maybe they're not endangered, but these guys are spectacular. And we have photographed on the motion triggered cameras river otters 3 miles away from the river. I had no idea they traveled that far away from water. And here is one of the photographs of a river otter. And this was taken on the road that goes up to the reserve, which is not close to the river.
Wow.
So did that answer your question, Jackie?
yeah, I'll definitely get the information at the end where you have your contact information.
Thank you, Jackie, for your question. Yeah, some positive COVID news for a change, Ingrid says.
Yeah. I'm curious whether, don't you love this picture?
Oh.
Mountain lion does not want to get his feet wet.
Ah,
And here's one playing with a gourd. I mean, that's inedible, right? I mean, it's just, that's for fun.
yes.
So this was our first photograph of a jaguar that we took back in 2004, I think. And we thought, oh my God, we've got these cameras out. They've been out for a whole year and we haven't had any jaguar photographs. What if this reserve has been purchased? The first ranch was purchased and we're not going to find any jaguars on it. And when we got this picture of this rear end, we were ecstatic.
Wow.
There's a print. And okay, can you find the jaguar in this photograph? See it right here?
Look at that.
See how well they're camouflaged?
Camouflage, yes.
This shows you one. Now that was taken, what I was saying, two cameras on either side. So you're getting the camera there too. And
We have a question from
Herb Myers. Yeah.
okay, Herb.
Do puma and
Does he wanna
jaguar?
ask it?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Herb,
Yeah, I just wonder, do the puma and jaguar tolerate each other in their territories?
No, and the idea used to be that that jaguars were nocturnal and that pumas were around in the daytime, but that really isn't true. And we have found two mountain lion puma carcasses that appeared to have, this is not confirmed scientifically, but they appeared to have crushed heads, and there isn't really anything else around that is going to crush a mountain lion head except for a jaguar. So no, they don't. But it's interesting. Some of the material that I've read, and like I said, I'm not a biologist, but some of the material I've read has talked about how jaguars are because they are often in the tropics, more commonly found in the tropics, and their home ranges are much smaller in the tropics because there's greater abundance of prey for them. They're adverse to getting wounded and getting infections. And we've had photographs of several pumas that are really cut up. Their faces are covered with scars, their chests have got scars on them. But we've never seen that in any of the jaguar photographs that we've taken. And since there's that adversity to get into a scrap, either with another animal or with human beings, they're more, what would I say, secretive, quiet. Their presence is, they're not going to go charge something and get into a fight. So they don't tolerate each other, but definitely the jaguar is going to win that fight if they get into it. These are some of the photographs, and of course, this is what we want to see, is this jaguar with a javelina under it. There's another one with the javelina under it, and look how lush this grass growth is in this photograph. These are all different male jaguars. Here we have a pair who are mating, and this is another pair that's mating. This is the female, and she's pursuing the male. I thought that was really interesting. Same female. Later on, and look at this belly, pregnant. This is a female carrying a rabbit, and she would have consumed this rabbit presumably on the spot had she not been carrying it back to a baby who is stashed in a cave somewhere. This is Cecilia with the baby. And this is another baby that we had. Another mother carrying prey to feed her young. And this is the most recent baby that we had. You can see the mom is like licking a big cub. It looks almost as big as she is. And here is, this is a photograph of the new kind of dining area and storage area that we built at one of the most beautiful locations on the reserve. And we do take trips to the reserve twice a year. We haven't done it this year, but we hope to start them back up again next year. And the night sky, as you can see, is truly spectacular. And we have 3 little casitas that surround this dining area. They're made out of local adobe by local people. And it's where we base our tours, and we go out to all different parts of the reserve, and we visit some of the ranchers in the area as well. In any case, here's all the information right here about how to contact us. That's the phone number of the office in Tucson. And like I say, we try to do 2 trips a year, and hopefully all of that will revive soon.
Thank you, Diana. That's great. We have a couple more questions.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And one is from our dear Karen LeMay of Pollinator Corridors. Go ahead, Karen.
Have you had any Jaguarundi sightings?
No, we haven't. And you know, I spent some time in Portal, Arizona, which is home to many wildlife biologists. And several people in Portal have said that they have seen jaguarundis, and they're just sure of it. The other thing that we've had recently is possums. And I didn't, you know, I always think of possums as being, you know, they belong in Louisiana and South Carolina. But there have been possums in the Tucson area, and in Cochise County, there have been a couple of sightings of possums. And we had a new kind of rare possum on the Jaguar Reserve too. So that was a real surprise.
We've also had opossums on our trail camera as well, and that's in Hereford, the base of the Huachuca Mountains.
Oh, that's great. Because I think that's something new. But anyway, jaguarundis are very distinctive because they're long, and they're very short legged, and they're close to the ground. And no, there has never been a confirmed sighting of a jaguarundi. And you know, that was something else that I wanted to mention in the talk, is that the Arizona Game and Fish has put together a list of all of the jaguar sightings in the state of Arizona. And I think the last female was seen in the 1950s or 60s in the White Mountains. And I know that in the 1950s, some boys killed a jaguar on the Santa Cruz River down by Tumacacri, or down by Tubac. And when they opened the stomach up, they found that the jaguar had been eating frogs. So jaguars are, they don't have to have a deer. They'll eat whatever happens to come by. But that was in the 50s. In any case, those 8 jaguars that have been sighted in Arizona in the past 2.5 decades, 3 decades, those have all been young males, and they're very well documented with photographs, and you can tell the difference between them.
Interesting. Well, that's one more question we have. Last question from Ingrid. Go ahead, Ingrid.
Hi, Diana.
Hi.
We have opossums in Napa, lots of them. I was wondering, do you know anything about the Florida jaguars? I know their population is endangered. I was just wondering if there's still jaguars there, if you know.
I don't think there are. I think that what they have in Florida is the Florida, do they call it the panther in Florida?
Oh, maybe it's a panther.
Yeah. But I mean, that, you know, I was saying that there are so many different names for what I call a mountain lion, because I'm from Arizona. But if if you go, it's a puma in Mexico, it's a cougar in the Northwest, it's a panther in Florida, and they have done, when I was in Florida a few years ago, and I went on the road that goes across the Everglades, and they have just done this absolutely wonderful job of putting in underpasses for the wildlife, and the underpasses are densely covered with vegetation on both sides, and they're used all the time by the Florida panthers and by all kinds of other wildlife as well. So that's been, you know, when you were asking what the biggest threat to jaguar recovery is, been the border wall, mining, and expanded human habitation, and that's the case with all wildlife. Essentially, mining is really not good for especially not lithium mining, because lithium is sort of spread out in these large areas, so it's not like you have one underground concentrated mining area. It's much more extensive in land use than other types of mining. So.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. And Diana, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful talk, really. Absolutely thrilling to hear of all the work that's happening south of the border. And obviously, we hope that this will result in more sightings north of the border. That will be so wonderful.
I hope so.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
great,
thank you, everybody.
So the talk is being recorded, and if any of you missed the beginning of it, then you'll be able to listen to it again later today. It'll be up for about 30 days, so please, if you enjoyed it, pass it on to your friends. They can also watch it and enjoy it too. And later, this talk and all of our previous talks that are on the YouTube channel, which Southwest Wings now has, and you can find this by going to YouTube and just searching for Southwest Wings, and you'll find a little logo of a Montezuma quail. Click on that, and all of the talks will come up, and you can watch them again and again and again to your heart's content.
Southwest Wings YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful, everyone. Please look for details of our next talk. The full details are going to be on our website, which is swwings.org. And that's going to be Kathy Anderson. And Kathy will be coming on the February the 24th. And we'll be talking about robins, bluebirds, and thrushes. One of my favorite families of birds. It's going to be a wonderful talk. Looking forward to that very, very much.
Yes. So,
okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. And you have the information of where to donate to the Northern Jaguar Project. And also, if you're so inclined, Southwest Wings is very grateful for any donations you would like to throw our way too. And until then, everybody stay well, stay safe. Thank you for joining us again, and staying connected monthly like this. Diana, wonderful to see you. And we hope to see you in person again soon too.
And I can't wait till you reopen the wonderful festival in Sierra Vista. It's
Thank you so much. Yes, we're shooting for summer, guys, just as a little advance notice.
Yeah, so keep looking at our website for news, any changes, any updates will be posted
there. Vaccines.
Yeah, indeed.
All right.
So, well, that's goodbye from me, Chris Harbard.
Until then, goodbye from me, Mary Sia. And be safe, be well, until we meet again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.